Jesus is King. Laudetur Jesus Christus. This is Timothy Flanders at the Meaning of Catholic. Jesus is King, and we're so happy to have Mr. Jason Craig with us. Mr. Craig is the co-founder, right, of Fraternus? Co-founder of Sword and Spade?
Yeah.
Or are you the...
Yeah, I only things.
He is the author of this new beautiful book from TAN. They just had a conference this past December. It's fantastic. And you're in North Carolina, right?
That's right.
Excellent. I'm go ahead.
I'm saying I'm a Carolina centrist, which is the belief that North Carolina is the center of the universe, and that is where I am.
Yeah. My friend in Charlotte calls it North Kakalaki. Do y'all call it North Kakalaki?
No. Well, yeah, we might definitely someone in Charlotte would call it that. That's right.
Oh, okay.
No, North Kakalaki. No, that is absolutely. I grew up with that phrase.
Oh yeah, okay, that's fantastic. Well, I'm a diehard Michigander, but I am somewhat of a copperhead, and I love the South. So I'm happy to have you on the project right now. I've got it's 20 degrees outside with a bunch of beautiful snow up here. But Mr. Craig he's the co-founder, or whatever, of Fraternus, which is a fantastic organization. They published this magazine, Sword and Spade. This is the latest issue right here. Do yourself a favor, especially if you're a man, subscribe to this magazine. This is the only magazine, Mr. Craig, that I always read cover to cover. I'm about 3 issues.
I'm so glad to hear that.
But it's the content of this magazine. It's like the best men's magazine I've ever. I haven't subscribed to a lot of men's magazine, but in terms of the manly content of this, up here in Michigan, we do the Troops of St. George, and we use a lot of your content for stuff that with troops. So I love.
Excellent. I'm so glad to hear you say that. For anybody who's out there listening, if they're interested, the reason it's good is that my co-editor, co-everything. I'm also a co-parent with my wife. Together we make children.
Oh, good.
He's a very well-read mechanic, and his insistence that we use in men that are in the trenches, that are very serious about their faith. It makes it editorially difficult because we don't work a lot with professional writers, some of them occasionally, but it makes for really great magazines of people actually doing it, not just trading in, memes and sloganeering.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, don't get me started about the memes and sloganeering. I work on the internet, so it's just like, that's what we're going to talk about. Oh, I can't forget to bring up this book that you sent me before I forget. This book right here, because you sent this to the Sword and Spade subscribers. This is the book, everybody. What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains: The Shallows. And I was very interested. I haven't had time to delve in. I was just reading the 10-year afterward. So is his point basically that the internet and this technocracy that we live in is basically just making us stupider? It's promoting lack of critical thinking, more emotionalism. Tell me about it.
Read the book. It's really fascinating because one of the big insights of that book is that your brain, right, as an organ created by God, that is somewhat is called neuroplasticity, meaning in different settings that man finds himself in, your brain will adapt to the settings. And generally, Christian civilization, or at least like the ideal, is that you are inclined towards prayer, right? You're able to be silent, recollected, worshipful. And he shows in that book how the scanning, the scrolling is literally rewiring our brains. Where, do you ever feel like I just can't like read deeply anymore or sit quiet? Like, you actually can't, because you have retrained your brain to basically be like a hunter or like someone always on the prowl looking for danger or something, and not someone. So what the worst result of it, and there was an article in the issue you just got is on that. Somebody mentions how he realized using the internet was making him, especially in the evening, was making his prayer in the morning harder. And it's true. And instead of thinking about it like, oh, I'm wasting time, it's making me dumb. Like, when you start thinking about it, it's physically changing my brain. It makes it a little different.
That is really great. And I'm looking forward to reading more into the book, because as obviously I make my money on the internet, and I've definitely learned through trial by fire the importance of trying to get a very strict schedule where I get off of my screens at a certain time, and I take certain days in the week where I'm just off of certain things and trying to do that, because I could feel the effects in my emotional life, my mental health, as well as my spiritual life. So very important. So this is a series. Yeah. So this series, I mean, of Catholic, the Lay Apostolate. This is where we talk all about all the topics, especially for lay people. This is the Lay Apostolate, where we are prophet, priest, and king in our own domain, which is the natural world. And this is a preview. So if you want the full thing, you have to become a guild member for our online guild. Go to meaningofcatholic.com/register. But I wanted to, before we get into our main topic, which is your book and the whole liturgyoftheland.com movement, Jason, I wanted to get to know you a little bit more. Are you a cradle Catholic? Are you always in North Kakalaki? You grew up there. When did you get into farming? Did you grow up as a farmer? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Man, lots of questions there. No, I did not grow up Catholic. I did not grow up particularly any sort of faith, sort of post Protestant Southern family. I don't know if you ever heard Flannery O'Connor's Christ Haunted South. In the South, Jesus is kind of everywhere and nothing at the same time. So, but didn't really go to church except on occasion with some family. So I converted in high school to Protestant Christianity, and had a girlfriend that also we converted. We were involved with Protestant youth movements and things, and then I became a Catholic in 2006. As far as if anyone asks where am I from, I always say North Carolina, though technically I was born, I'm about to admit this on the internet, born in Cincinnati, and lived there for a little while. My family had moved there to start a business, and then my parents divorced, and the family's all back in North Carolina now. So it's kind of this technicality, although my uncle still calls me the Yankee-born one, because of where the technicality. But anyway, I've been here my whole life. My wife's from here. This is our home.
Okay, fantastic.
No, we did not. No, and I did not grow up farming. Did not grow up homesteading. I did grow up with a blue collar father, mostly. He's a plumber, and that's a good acquaintance with work and construction, things like that.
Fantastic. Well, there is. We do have a number of our guild community. They were very excited. There's a lot of questions about this, and there's a lot of people who want to get into farming, homesteading. We have one guild family who's actually two, which are actually living in a homestead. They've been homesteading for a couple of years now, and a lot of people also want to get into something. So, how did you get into farming, homesteading? How did you make that transition from what were you doing before? Go ahead.
Well, I was actually at the time I was working for, or when I had my land movement, moment, I was working for Fraternus. I was actually getting a graduate degree in theology, and what I was studying was, why do we need these apostolates for men today? And because people say, oh, well, it's inorganic. We don't need programs to save us, also. But the reality is that we're hemorrhaging young men. There's clearly a crisis of masculinity. So I was very interested in this, and I still am. And in fact, Liturgy of the Land is just kind of further study in the fact that for men, the economic reality that we face shapes us a lot. I mean, we talked about that book, how the internet shapes our brain and everything. Few of us realize how much our economic situation affects our ability and willingness to lead our family. We're really, bound up in that as husbands, right? Husband means housebound, right? You're bound to the needs of that house and providing for them and all that. So I was, and I started reading all the, the OGs that people know in these kind of things. Hilaire Belloc, Chesterton. Got interested in the English Catholic land movement. And we were living in an apartment in Denver, Colorado. My wife and I, when you're young family, you'll go move places. How did we even get here? What are we doing here? But I had my third child. It was a second son, And she said, "Well, where do you want to be in 5 years?" And I just said, we got to be on a farm. It just seemed like I want to be on a farm." And that was around 2011, 12. And we moved back home to North Carolina. As far as, how is that possible? Well, I mean, that's the irony, or the paradox, or the problem, however you want to see it, or the solution is that a lot of us can work from home, and homestead, whereas in the past many people farmed or homesteaded because they couldn't afford to do anything else. A lot of us can afford to do it because of work outside of the home that's made possible by the internet. So um, we can talk about the pros and cons of that, but that's the reality. So we moved in 2011 or 12. We bartered we had no money. We bartered for where we lived. Actually, we spent our last little bit of money on 2 milk cows.
That's gotta be a country song, right? I mean,
oh man, when I tell this story, I just want to caution everybody. I'm describing our course of action. I am not prescribing this as a good idea. But actually being without money made our first year or so of homesteading very serious, because we needed the food that we were growing. It wasn't like it was optional. So these milk cows were we bought 2 milk cows that had never been milked before, and we had never milked a cow before. So
wow.
If you don't know, that's not a good mix. But we figured it out, and we had to figure it out because we had kids, and we didn't have a lot of money, and or any, and so that vegetable garden and those turkeys and all the stuff we were growing were very important. And yeah, I don't know. Wow. The story from there is, I think part of it's in the book, but we went from there to a 3-acre. We literally had, I heard the Chestertonian phrase. It shows up in other literature too. 3 acres and a cow. For a while, we lived on we had 3 acres and a milk cow. And that was our, in a garden and some pigs. And then we moved to a 10-acre farm that we were able to purchase because my father bought it with us. And then through a series of events, we expanded that farm. So we're now on about 20 acres, although that's not in full. It's not 20 acres of production, just in case people are wondering. And
okay.
And then across the street from us now is another Catholic who has purchased about 15 acres, and he has started a butcher shop. In fact, you should Melvin Hill Meats, if anyone's out there. I think he's shipping. He's a craftsman, really great butcher. And then there's another Catholic friend down the road. So anyway, we started. We were kind of the only ones around here. Now there's a growing community that's kind of based around. In fact, there's one or two. Yeah, Jared.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Excuse me.
Well, let's talk all about that. And so there's a growing community in your area. If anybody's interested in moving there, we also, as I mentioned, one of our guild members is also they're closer to the Clear Creek Monastery, which is fantastic. Yeah. In I think it's Oklahoma, right? But this is what we're going to talk about. This beautiful book produced by Tan. I'm really happy that this exists because it's just a beautiful book for a beautiful thing. The Liturgy of the Land. You just had I think your first event, and this is part of the neo-Catholic land movement. So that's what we're going to talk about when we come back. For guild members, like I said, subscribe to the guild, get the whole conversation, and get all the questions. Okay, the time is 18 minutes. So I wanted to ask you, is this part of, how would you describe, is this a neo-Catholic land movement? How does this compare to what happened in the early 1900s with Chesterton and Belloc? What's going on?
Sure. Well, yeah, the original Catholic land movement, as a lot of people know, I mean, it was a response to industrialism, the obvious decay of the family that was, that really hasn't stopped, and existed. England, Ireland was approved by the church, was very intertwined with the church, had some great, fierce proponents and people like Father Vincent McNabb and others. And as far as an organized movement, it basically went dormant after World War II. And it experienced a lot of failures along the way, if in regards to attempting to resettle, so to speak, people on the land. Some of their early communities and things didn't pan out, but also, the world being at war didn't help either. Excuse me. The As far as uh, is the movement still going? Interestingly, there is, I was a part of, actually around 2012, something we called the New Catholic Land Movement, and it was, with some people might have remembered the blog. Kevin Ford, he had a little farm, a vegetable farm in Kansas, and some other people joined him. That was really wrapped up in their farm itself. Whoever